Hi folks, this video was inspired by a little video from Naive Chats with Tobias, who's another YouTube channel, and he has quite a few of these knife and spike type knives, but I only have four, but they've been sitting on my desk, or three of them have been sitting on my desk for a long time. One of them, unfortunately, this one is set to go off to a museum shortly. It has just been accepted, took ages, but it's been accepted as a donation to the Royal Armouries in Leeds, and so it'll be going off to them very soon. Now, I only, as I say, I only have four of these. It's not exactly a huge collection, but it's representative in some ways. This one is German. These two are British. Well, these three are British, but these are genuine military issue, and this one is a civilian one. But it is made in Sheffield. Now, the early patterns of these for both the Army and the Navy looked rather like this one here. Now, this one I think was first issued in about 1938 to the British Navy, and one almost identical was issued to the British Army, only it had a can opener as well as the knife and spike. So this one has a fairly it's quite strong spring, and if you've been watching here you'll know my hands don't work desperately well, but it has a good sheep's foot blade of just over 3 inches long, but I believe in terms of UK legality, it's the cutting edge is just under 3 inches, so it's fine to carry. It has, of course, the Marlin spike on the back, and at the top we have a screwdriver and what's always called a bail these days, but I would have always called it a lanyard ring, because a naval knife you always need to have it on a lanyard, because otherwise you will lose it. Now, this particular one was purchased by me from the store in HMS Claverhouse, which is a concrete frigate in Edinburgh, or was rather. It's been kind of decommissioned, and it was handed over to the Army to use as a training centre for the Territorial Army, which leads me on to this one, because as I served in the Royal Naval Reserve later on, I actually bought it when I was a child, but I also served in the same place when I was an adult. When I was a child, my father was a Killick in the R&R, and later on, when I was of an age, I joined, and I was a sub-lieutenant in the Naval Reserve at the same base. My little brother had this one. He was in the Territorial Army, and this was his knife. Interestingly, it's dated 1971. He was born in 1970, so the knife is almost as old as he is. James Hall, her Sheffield maker. Now, as I say, this is the Army version. Now, originally, the Army version had the same scales as this one here, but in after the war, I think it was about 1947 or so, they changed to this. Also, there are a number of Army patterns of this type, the earlier type. So I'm tapping on the wrong place, and you tap on the screen to make it focus. Of this type, but without the Marlin spike, but with the can opener. So that, there are variations in these things, but yes, the Army one has similar size blade, slightly smaller, and of course it's been very badly looked after. God only knows how and what it was sharpened with. I've tried to put a new edge on it, but I didn't want to take too much metal off, so I've sort of followed the line of the edge, but it's at least it's sharp and it cuts things. Again, it's got the screwdriver, but in this case it's not at the lanyard loop end, it's at the other end, which is actually rather more useful. The difficulty with these ones is, particularly if you've got a lanyard on there, you've got to kind of hold the lanyard out of the way while you're trying to use a screwdriver. To have it at the other end makes a lot more sense. But then this is a later pattern, so it's not really a surprise. Again, it has the Marlin spike. Marlin spike is used in rope work mainly. Oops. Try not to stab myself. This Marlin spike is actually quite sharp. I never really felt the need for a particularly sharp Marlin spike. I find they tend to catch in the tight fibres of ropes if it's too sharp. But each to their own. I remember I used to sharpen mine up when it got bent with a dart sharpener. Anybody knows what I mean? Anybody who plays darts will know exactly what I mean. Anyway, that is that's the army equivalent. Now, as I say, the army originally in the Second World War made ones like this with these heavy metal scales. They also made some with a kind of plastic scale that looked like this, but it was black plastic. But I say after the war they went for this one. Now this one is, of course, it's smaller, it's much lighter, it's two-spring design, and I say it has a can opener. Now this one that I've got here is much more modern, I think. It's very hard to tell because I found it in a box of things after my stepfather died. So I don't know how long he'd had it, but it's in very good condition. So it's stainless on that side. This side I think is interesting. It says, I don't know if you can read that, but it says letter B, the number 4, star, and then any. Before any? Is that similar to the sort of unexcelled type messages on sort of Wilson Home and Case Knives? I don't know. Or is it Case Knives or is it GC that does it? I don't know. Anyway, this one is of significantly inferior quality though. That's the one thing that is quite clear about it. The blade itself is got quite badly dented with cutting something somewhere along its. Oops, I have to go off camera here. Oh, it's awfully stiff. This one's super stiff. I mean, it's in good nick, it's nice and shiny and so on, but I did have a problem with. You can't really see it now because I've kind of tried to polish it out. But it did have, yes, there you can see it there. Had a bit of a kink in the blade because it's quite thin. Now, thin equates to nice and cutty, obviously. It's a much thinner stock. It's a more modern design in some ways. But in terms of standing up to the rough and tumble of being on a ship or in military service, I suspect you really want to stick with one of these. Now, I've just included this one because it is interesting. This is it's a much bigger knife. Now, this is German. It's a Luftwaffe gravity knife. This was an actual issued gravity knife. I have to do it off camera because it should. I mean, theoretically, it's a gravity knife. It should just. Well, it does now. Oh, I've got it moving. Fallout. Now, the idea of this was if you're stuck in a tree in your parachute. Something I should point out: the paratroopers in the German army were part of the Luftwaffe, not the army. So, parachute regiment in the British army is part of the army, and I suspect it's probably the same in America, but in World War II, the paratroopers were part of the Luftwaffe, not the army. So, say it's a Luftwaffe knife and it's got Luftwaffe acceptance marks on it. It was paratroopers. They had their own suite of weapons completely. This wasn't a weapon. This is a utility knife, and the idea was if you're stuck in a tree, go away. There we are. It's gone away. You're stuck in a tree. You can open your knife with one hand, cut yourself free, and you're away. The other thing that a paratrooper might need to do was to untangle his lines is before repacking his parachute or whatever else. Now I just need to do this slightly off camera because I can't see it. Oh, there it is, I found it. Yeah. This also has a Marlin spike with a nice pointy end, but it's slightly different in sort of style. Oops, get this in the other hand. Slightly different in style to, oops, slightly different in style to the British ones, in that it comes down and then rather than tapering to a point, it comes down almost parallel and then has a very harsh taper at the end. It has also on here, there's the Luftwaffe acceptance marks. Now I can't really see them there, but I suspect you can. It's an eagle. Anyway, a tiny bit of rust on there, but I'm reluctant to do any restoration. I thought, as it's going to a museum, it might be better if they do whatever they think needs done to it. But it's exactly the same idea. These are all utility knives. So these are military knives that never ever had any intention of being used as weapons. They weren't designed to be so, and in fact, if you think about it, in many ways, these were designed not to be fighting weapons. For those that are interested, there were lots of people made these knives, including incidentally Taylor's Eyewitness. I noticed I saw one by them on being advertised for sale, a 1938 model. That's determined to not focus now, isn't it? Oh no, here we are. Now this one is made by Meissen, not Meissen with the cross swords as in Dresden, China. This is Meissen, M-Y-S-O-N, of Sheffield. Has the pattern number on there, 21306. 306, I think it is. You know, if you're interested in this, if you put 21306 into Google, it'll bring them up. Or at least it does on mine. Maybe that's because I have an unhealthy interest in knives. I don't know. The pattern on this one, which was standard army issue certainly through the 70s and 80s. I don't know if they still issue them or what the rules are. I'm past that sort of thing. But you see, 1971. You've got the Arrow acceptance mark, James Hall and Co. Again, these would be made by any number of makers. 9737403. I think that's what it says. You'll be able to read it better than me on a big screen. I hope. I'm looking at it through the back of a camera. And I wonder if I can get this one open again. It's the stiffest of the lot. Just give it a wee second. Right, resort to my other method of opening it. Getting it out. When you've only got one hand that works, you have to make do with what comes along. So I have, you put a cloth around it and then grip it with my teeth, and use my one good hand to open it. Now I say I've sharpened this, so I have to be a little bit careful I don't cut myself as I open it. Okay, right, and all of that so I can show you that it has a very poor stamp. You can see then the word Sheffield is underneath it. So it's James Watt. James Watt? Get it to focus eventually. Or John Watt of Sheffield. Now, it's quite badly stamped actually, which I always think, you know, if you're a knife maker or you make anything and you stamp your name on it before you send it to the factory, would you not make sure that your name was stamped properly? If there's just one thing you're going to get right, you want your name stamped on it. And it's teeth going into use again. This one. There's nothing to do with these, just to do with rubbish tang stamps. Why, oh why would you send your knife out with your tang stamped as badly as that? What does that say about your quality control? And this is one of their sort of prestige knives. I don't know. Anyway, so that's it really. All I just wanted to show. Say, you can always tell a Navy one because it never has a can opener on it. Army ones generally have a can opener on them and generally have a Marlin spike on them. But some particularly early ones, pre-war ones, didn't have the Marlin spike. They just had the knife and the can opener. And as far as I've seen from all the examples I've seen, that is the rule. Navy ones never have a can opener on them. So if you see one of these, the modern ones, and there are a number of people do them, Noel I think still make one in Sheffield, they actually do one that says stamp genuine British Army, and it's not quite right because these were polished, and now it's hard to say to see that now considering how bashed it is. They now do them with a satin finish, but other than that, it is very similar. It may be that it is genuinely the British pattern because I suspect that at least in the past they will have made them for the armed forces, because literally just about every Sheffield knife maker made these. Anyway, that's 60 minutes. That's far too long for one of my videos, so I will call it a day there. Any questions, put them below. If there's anything particular you want to see, put your remarks below and I'll be happy to oblige if I can. Thank you very much. Bye.